interlinked, and what happens on the mine affects the communities in negative ways. Mining communities have to pay for mining with their lives and with children's futures, while we do not receive the benefits of mining. I will request to start with our comrade David van Veek in leading us on how we can go beyond this as we are affected by COVID-19 pandemic, and the mines are opened and most of the workers are affected by COVID-19. Welcome, Comrade David.
Thank you very much, Francina, and the panelists, and thank you for having me on this very important discussion on Youth Day. We are talking about the youth of our country when we talk about mine workers and school children, and it is important that we see that 25 years after the historic compromise of 1994, the lives of mine workers are still considered very cheap. A week ago, I did a survey in gold mines of the salaries of mine workers, and it's still around 5,334 rands for an entry-level worker. And it is shocking that so many years after Marikana, in fact, it's now 8 years after Marikana, workers are still earning 5,334 rands a month, mine workers. And these are in some of the most dangerous mines of the world that this is the case. Now, these mine workers at the start of lockdown all went home to the Eastern Cape, and they passed through Johannesburg, and they picked up the virus in Johannesburg on their way by taxi and all other means, because mines don't provide mine workers with proper transport, unlike Australia, where they fly the migrant workers up and down. Here, the mine workers have to risk their lives in taxis and all kinds of other very dubious and dangerous transport to go home and come back. And so many workers picked up this virus, and the Eastern Cape became an epicenter for the virus. And then when they prematurely reopened the mines, 3-4 weeks into lockdown, because the mine bosses put immense pressure on the government to reopen the mines, even though it's completely unnecessary to reopen the mines, given that there are a glut of commodities on global markets, and reopening the mines would simply push down the prices of these minerals. These workers then came back from the Eastern Cape, which was the third highest infection levels in the country after Western Cape and Gauteng, and of course KZN. And they came back to the Northwest and to Limpopo and to Mpumalanga and so on, and they brought the virus with them. And we see now that the Northwest is very rapidly becoming one of the main epicenters in the country of this virus. And we see Sekhukhune, this virus is spreading like wildfire in communities, because these workers stay in communities, often in informal settlements. Because unlike in Australian mines, here workers are not accommodated properly by the mines. And the mines give them a living out allowance with which they can barely afford to rent a zinc shack in the community and infect the members of the community with this virus. And with that background, I will give other panelists an opportunity.
Thank you, Comrade Van Veek. Can I call Comrade Sello Mchosa also to have some inputs from him? Comrade Mchosa?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Comrade Francina. And let me greet all the group team members, I mean. My concern is actually with regard to the structures of the community, especially the local structures and leading up to the national structures. Yeah, I'll be talking about the structures that include the churches, your religious leaders, your educational structures, your policy structures, and so forth. These structures are the structures that should have been there, making sure that when government implement all these regulations regarding the COVID-19, they make sure that the people, our community, are taken care of. I would like to give a clear example that when talking about the mines, when reopening the mines, the communities, especially with the help of the trade unions, the labor union, should have made sure that these mining companies, they do comply with the regulations. These mining companies they do have the procedures that they are going to use to make sure that when they reopen the mine, they implement all the measures to contain the virus. I would like to give an example of what happened in Sekhukhune, as David has just said. What happened actually was that the mine was closed, and there came a phase where the mine should reopen. Those migrant workers that were coming outside Limpopo came back to the mine, and there was just too much misunderstanding when coming to the screening and testing and the isolations of those workers that were coming to reopen the mine. So the trade unions and all these civil society organizations must also be considered and be at the forefront in making sure that when they reopen the mine and when they reopen the school, all these measures to contain the virus, minimizing the learners in the classes and minimizing the workers in the shaft or at the work floor, are being taken into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade Muchosa. I will pose some questions after. Can I have Comrade Ntlantla as a student and also as a youth to tell us how they are affected about opening of schools and opening of mines and how she is affected as a community living in a mining area. Comrade Ntantla.
Thank you, Comrade Francina. I would like to highlight that it is very sad that our government in this time, after so many years of democracy, is still not including us in the decision that is made in terms of the communities. And I would like to say also that it is very important that we come as the youth, we come together and unite and we stand against the culture of the government not including us as a community, as a youth and as young women. And the COVID-19 has had a very big impact in communities, especially the mining affected communities, and with the youth also. So the decision that the youth can go to school, and the people can go to school, and that the mine can reopen without the very advanced health measures that are put in place is very wrong, and we should stand up and fight against that. Thank you, my leader.
Thank you, Comrade Ntlantla. Comrade Mukete, as a community living in mining affected community in Mokopane, your inputs also? Comrade Mukete. as we are still waiting for Comrade Mugete, I need to pose a question to all my panelists. How do you see South Africa beyond COVID-19? And as you know, on the 26th of June, it's the day the mining of our mining charter, and also we looking at communities who can access water, who can access the 350. How can we do this, and how can we improve the lives of communities, and also the inclusiveness of us living in the mining communities? What steps can we take, and what can be done to overcome this? It's to all the panelists, whoever can go in. I'm happy with that.
Comrade Chair, if no one else wants to take up the challenge of your question, I think that it is very important to note that in the reopening of mines, communities were not consulted. In the same way, as we move towards post-COVID society, again, even though everyone has expressed concern about the inequalities of our society, the immense poverty of people, the very terrible conditions under which people are expected to live and work in this country, again, communities are being ignored. And a golden opportunity to create a different kind of society post-COVID is going by the wayside, because the people with the big money and the big power seem to be in charge and directing the government as to what decisions to take with regard to a post-mining society. As for schools, I think the schools should remain closed for the rest of this year, and the government should spend this time fixing the schools so that when children come back to school in January next year, they come back to schools with proper infrastructure, proper water, proper sanitation, proper sewage, and proper safe conditions for our children to be in. As it is, many hundreds of thousands of children go back to substandard schools and education in this country. And it's a disgrace that 25 years after the historic agreement of 1994, our children find themselves in the same miserable conditions that they were in under apartheid.
I agree with you, Comrade David, because how can you close the schools while there's less people affected, and then you open the schools while there's many people affected, and then now the kids that are going to school, they are in danger, and also they don't have a proper classroom. There's no sanitations that they were promised. I'm talking about schools that are in the rural areas. It's like when they say, black men, you are on your own. It's like that. It's like the government is looking at the tenders of opening of the schools only, forgetting our lives. As we say, black men lives matters, but for them it's vote first matters. To you, Nonhlanhla, how do you feel, and what do you think can be done for you as you are going to school? How can the government, or what should the government should have done to make sure that you are covered as a student?
Comrade Francina, as I've said, that it is very sad that the conditions that we live in the communities on the ground, it's horrific. So even with this COVID-19, it is even worse. So I think, so we had a case here in Sidibeng whereby the schools were opening, but there were no sanitizers, there were no health precautions, there were no signs of social distances and all of the precautions that the government has put in place that were supposed to be there. So I feel like, as Comrade David had said, that the schools are not ready, the communities are not ready to go back to work in the mines, the children are not ready to go back to school. And I think the government should start consulting us, because this is our lives, this is our future, this is our future generations that are affected, these are our communities that are affected on the ground. So what we see on the TVs and on the social medias, that the government is putting the safety precautions and the sanitizers in the schools, it's all a lie, because here in our schools, there is no such thing. And I think that it is important that we come together as the youth, as the learners, as the pupils of the schools, and fight for inclusion in the decisions that affect us as a community, as schools, as the youth of South Africa, because this is our future, this is our children, this is our family, and this is our South Africa, and we need to be consulted. I think consultation should start now. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Ntanta. Comrade Silo, we see
Yes.
now that the rate of GBV is very high, and women are being killed. What should the community, when I say the community, I'm talking about all of us, what should the community do to stop this? What should be done?
Thank you very much, Comrade Francina. With regard to the issue of gender-based violences, I think it is best and most important that we implement a culture of having what I can call active citizenships. Citizenships in a way that all men, young men and women, are being taught about what needs to be done in this country. I will emphasize the need that will arise when coming to the role that should be played by the civil society organization at a community level when coming to gender-based violences, especially issues like the information sharing sessions. It is very critical for these organizations to come up with a way of rendering workshops and training that will alert the people about gender-based violences. Also, these structures are able and are at the right corner to identify the priorities with regard to the gender-based violences, and they are at a strategic location than the state organs to deal with the gender-based violences, because these people, they are the active citizens, they are part of the activism of the society, they are there, they know what is happening, they know their neighbors, they live with their neighbors. These young women and young men, they talk to them every day. Some of them are members of these churches structures. They are members of the football clubs. They are members of the cultural groups and members of the other community-based organizations. They go to school together. So these people have got a clear platform that can be used to teach people about gender-based violences. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Comrade Gilbert, do you have any questions on the Facebook page that needs to be addressed?
Not yet, Comrade Francina, but I've heard Salom Chusa talking about the collaboration between the community-based organizations, talking about churches, soccer teams, the labor unions, and stuff like that. So I'm worried as someone who comes from a mining affected communities. You see, in most communities, when these people, the moment they get employed, they no longer belong to the community. They don't attend community meetings. They don't attend community picketing. They don't attend the community storytelling. Even these people are going to church, the churchgoers. Most of them, they are not in activism. They think activism is immoral. Being an activist is immoral. So I've heard Comrade Machosa talking about the collaboration between those community-based organizations, cultural groups, and stuff like that. I want him to be with me here. Comrade Machosa, how do we deal with that kind of situation in mining affected communities? Because I'm scared. In my community, it's not happening. We, as activists, we are on our own. Church is on its own. These people who are employed at the mine, they are on their own. There's no support. There's no in sync. We are not in this together. So how do we deal with that situation?
Thank you very much. I think we all know that before you are a member of a church or before you are being employed in a certain mining companies, first and foremost you are a member of a community. You belong to a community. You have got your neighbors, you have got your brothers and sisters, your peers that you have played with, that you have schooled with. It is important that as the civil society organization and as the activists, we do engage our partners, the labor unions, the church structures. It is important that we can take it from an organizational level, attend and engage with the labor union so that we get involved in their activities and invite them also as union together with their members to come and participate in the communities of our civil society organizations. I think that will be the shortest way of engaging the workers that do not take part or participate in community matters. Like, I will just cite an example here, what I've seen happening in one of the mining community where they were organizing a protest against the mine. The members of the community, through their structures, invited trade unions in the mining sector, especially those that are having members in that mine. And those members that were not working, all of them, they have participated in the community protest. I think it is good to take this matter from an organizational level. You invite trade unions to be part and parcel of your programs. You invite the church structures to be part and parcels of your programs.
Okay, thanks, Congressman Chester. Because from my point of from my understanding, I believe in putting pressure from all possible points, but we see how it's out. Comrade Francina, can you please let Muketi in? I think she's ready.
I can't let Muketi in. Because of challenge of my, I'll keep on trying. Let me pose a question.
Okay, Moketi can just ask a question, Francina. Moketi, go ahead.
Okay, all right.
Or make your input, Moketi. Moketi, come in. Okay, Francina, she's not engaging, but there are other people who have joined, who have questions like, I think Motomi has a question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Motomi. Okay, Motomi is not unmuting. Simon, you had a question?
Hello? Hello?
Go ahead, Motomi.
Yes, do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yes. My question is directly to the mine, in terms of the COVID-19, because it seems like as the community, the government, they just opened the mine without consulting the community. Because if you can check, especially right now, when we in Lapalal, there is a people that are affected in COVID-19 government in Exaro. So we don't know those people who have been in the community side or what, because this pandemic is very serious. So my concern is that those people, we don't know where are they now. Maybe Muchusa, they will give us the clarity on or in terms of that, in terms of those people where are situated now, because we seems like our numbers in Marabo, they are going higher and higher and higher. We don't know what's going on, because this pandemic is very serious. So the mind, even the government, does not take as the community serious, because they see the numbers that are going up and up and up. They're opening the schools, they open the alcohols and stuff. So we as the activists, we must do something as the NGOs. We must do something and pressurize the government to say, no, what you are doing is wrong. Thank you. Thank you, leader.
Muchusa, can you try and give clarity on that, and if you can't answer that one, it's fine, because it's
Okay,
like it's asking you.
Okay, yeah, let me try to give some clarity where I can, as I've did some diggings on this matter. Currently, Exaro, the Palale coal mine is having 3 confirmed cases. Recovery is 1, and 2 are still active, and all these people that tested positive are being quarantined at the Mangeti Lodge, which is the mine facility, and then they've been able to trace the first case, the first initial case that was at screen repair. The immediate contact was involved 8 workers, and all of them were traced and they were tested negative. And then I'm not sure about the recent cases that were confirmed on Saturday. I'm not sure what happened or what is happening, but currently the mine is at 3 cases, and all those people that tested positive and their immediate contact were all of them quarantined at Mangeti Lodge. These people, I know 2 of them, they were staying in one of the mine facility, not in the community. And then, but though they are part and parcel of the community, and though go shopping together with the community. With the 3rd case, the one that was confirmed on Saturday, it is one of their stakeholders, product support, Donaldson. It happened that these people, they had visitors from Joburg that were delivering their material on site, and then they are trying to trace them and try to quarantine all their contact. I think.
Thank
Hello?
you. Yes, Mukiti.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Well, you know, I think what's happening is that our government is the one that has actually corrupted, the mining sector, because last month alone, the Mineral Council has actually released a statement saying that they, as the mines, they will lose 80 billion rands in revenues because of this lockdown. And my argument is very simple, because in mining, there has never been any lockdown. You know, when the president announced that there will be a total lockdown on the 26th of March this year, then Minister Gwede Mantashe
said only essential mining should take place, and essential being coal mining. But myself, where I come from, I don't stay in a community where it's a coal mining. Rather, it's a platinum mining. They were inoperational. They never stopped working. So the only thing here is mines that the biggest tax dodgers, that's the only thing they're interested in. They are just interested in dodging the tax because they're very corrupt. That is the only thing that the mining sector is doing at the moment. So that is what the youth of today are faced with. They're faced with corruption in the mining sector. Thank you.
Comrade, can I respond?
Yes, before you respond, Comrade Van Wyk, I want to pose another question on you. You talked
Okay.
about the good that Australians are doing in transporting their workers. My question to you is about what is the difference in them doing the same as they are doing in their places, because most of the mines that are in Africa, they are from Australia.
Yes, I think that what is happening in the South African and African context is that the Australian mining companies behave very differently in Africa than what they do at home. And that is because the mining legislation and the governance structures in Africa are rather weak and easily exploited under the banner of attracting foreign investment. So, for example, a mine worker in Australia that lives in Sydney but works far away from Sydney, gets flown in, he works for 2 weeks and then he has 1 week off. They fly him back home for a week. On the mining site, he has accommodation provided with 3 meals a day, a cleaner for the accommodation that cleans the accommodation, and with cable TV, as well as all sports facilities, including swimming pools, squash courts, soccer fields, everything else is included. And what is more, the annual wage of an Australian mine worker, and you can check this on the internet, a high school dropout, entry-level worker, is about 1.2 million rands a year. A South African mine worker is lucky if they make even 150,000 a year. In most cases, South African mine workers make less than 100,000 a year. You know, so 1.2 million rands compared to about 100,000 or less is what we are looking at in terms of wages. But that is because, the Australian workers happen to be white and privileged, and that is a global phenomenon, that white workers get paid more than black workers. Even in South African mines, when workers are at a management level. I've just been speaking to someone who's in the mining industry this morning, who was telling me about the racism and the discrimination in South African mines, even at management level. So a black manager can be more qualified than a white manager, but will be supervised by the white manager. The black manager will be sent for endless empowerment courses, even if the black manager has a master's or doctorate degree and his supervisor does not have a degree at all. You know, so that kind of discrimination is never focused on. So if they don't value the contribution of their black workers, even at the management level, then they will not even value the contribution of those same workers right down at the bottom of the scale and treat them even worse. And the fact that the mines have reopened for COVID is an indication that they don't value mine workers in South Africa at all. They think that they are dispensable, that they can be easily replaced because we have very high levels of unemployment in this country.
Thank you, Comrade David. I have a question from Maren Grimm from Hamburg, Germany, of Plaubeck, the Fruits Network. The question is, I want to ask about structures that are actually at place in mining communities. Who is actually there to monitor the situation of community? Is it trade unions, company representatives at all, local politicians, social workers? Is there even a clear structure? A question to my panelist from Maren.
Well, I think there's Makua, which represents communities and works with communities. There are community monitors from benchmarks as well, and there's a big overlap between them. And certainly there has been an attempt to allow communities to find their own voices, and communities have done so. But unlike in other countries in the world, when communities raise their voices, they are met with tear gas and bullets and police and militarized security. And this is the problem. You see, it's no good having structures when those structures are trampled on instead of being negotiated with.
Yes, people are being killed for raising their voices, and some are being raped as women for being vocal, and we have our constitution. Why is our constitution not valuing the lives of the communities?
Comrade Francina?
Yes.
We have a number of other questions as well. I think you have listed the one from
Maren. I saw
Maren.
one from, yes.
Right, there is another one here. If I can just ask, just run through them quickly, and then we can deal with them.
Okay.
So the one is from, I'm not sure, it's Lenswane. What are the specific human rights issues emanating from COVID-19 lockdown regulations in relation to the mines and the schools opening? How best could these human rights issues be addressed, and how best can we engage with community groupings and leadership without putting everyone's life or anyone's life at risk or exposing them to the risk of COVID? That's the one question. Then I have another one also from Lenswane. Oh, no, it's a duplication. He asked it again. And then another one from Lorraine, who says that the Minerals Council South Africa denies that mines are the epicenter of COVID-19 so far. So maybe if our panelists can respond to that. So while the Minerals Council is denying these things, how can we as communities bring these issues into the center? Certainly from Makua's point of view, we're saying that the only way to do this is through united action, but maybe the panelists have other options that we can consider. Another question. How could government ensure that there is a balance between an imperative need to grow the economy, save jobs, and fight COVID-19? That's also from Lenswane. So I'll leave those questions for now. There are some on the Facebook page as well, Gilbert, if you can deal with those in the next round.
Thank you, Comrade Chris. Our panelist.
Comrade, I think that those are very important questions that have been raised. I think that in terms of the Constitution of South Africa, we first and foremost have a right to life. And by reopening mines, we are actually undermining that constitutional right to life. Then we have a right to safety and security. And again, our rights to safety and security are being threatened by the reopening of mines. And it's no good for the Minerals Council to say that the mines are not yet the epicenter. Before the mines were reopened, there were 0 cases in Sekhukhune. And today, we have hundreds of cases. Before the mines reopened, the Northwest Province was right there at the bottom with regard to cases being registered. Today, Bojanala district is under serious pressure as a result of the hundreds of people who are being infected since the reopening of mines. Apart from which, the mines are very closed businesses with very tight security and so on. So we don't even know if we are getting the relevant information and the required and requisite transparency out of the mines. Because even without COVID, the Department of Mineral Resources is completely ineffective in monitoring what is going on in mines. So how can we expect it to be effective to, in fact, monitor this crisis?
Muchosa?
Thank you very much, Comrade Francina. Yes, I do agree with David. Since the reopening of the mines, we have seen a lot of areas becoming the epicenters, especially what we have experienced in Sekhukhune. You also come here in Waterberg, Lepalale and Tabazimbi and Mokopane also reported few cases after the reopening of the mine, especially moving from 50% to 100%. You also go to Northwest. There is also the same crisis. The reopening of the mine led to many cases being confirmed, the COVID-19 cases. I think our government was reckless with regard to this matter, where our lives were taken for granted. And I would like to urge and encourage our civil society organization to make as many submissions as they can to the war room, the COVID-19 war room led by the president, to alert the president and the war room, put some more pressure so that when they go sit down and review their regulations and the levels, they do consider the impact their recklessness is having in our communities.
Thank you, Comrade Muchosa.
Comrade Francina, we also have
yes.
Comrade Mishek who would like to make an input.
Okay. Welcome, our chairperson. Leadership, Mishak Mbangula.
Mishek, you have to unmute on your side.
Baba Gama Twins, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I've done that. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm saying our government in 2012 killed workers who were merely asking for a living wage, shot them to death, you know. And now when this COVID come in, we don't expect our government to protect the life of people when they want to, instead they want to kill us, not to say they want to protect us. So with this COVID, they came to one understanding, that is they will open their minds and start working, because that's what is very important to them, the capital. But our lives does not matter to them. So what is important is, even in 1976, when we demanded a better education, we were killed. For us to be able to be part of the drafting of the charter, we had to go to court. For Marikana people to get better wage, they had to be killed. everything that we do with this government, it shows beyond any reasonable doubt that is, we are not important. We are not really, we just problematic. So they will rather leave us to death. As Makua, we emphasized, we forced ourselves. We went to court to say we want to be part of the drafting of the disaster management, health and safety. Disaster management. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
now I can. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, we pushed to be part of that disaster management, health and safety. But unfortunately, they didn't. They turned us down because they think they know very well that is our views will be to protect our people. That's why they were kicked out, and they brought in people who look at how do they, make sure the capital or the make money for them, not save the life of people. So in short, I'm saying if they kill people in Marikana protecting their resources, why would we think they will help us? They will not kill us now with this COVID when they're protecting their resources. Thank you.
Comrade Francina, can I ask very briefly, there is a hand from Moalusi. If you want to go ahead quickly, Moalusi, to ask your question or make your input.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Molusi.
It's a pity, man. I was recognized so late. My comment is I'm coming from Carltonville, Kuto, Makua branch. I was just, it's a pity, as I say, it's a pity I joined you late. I think the president of the country made a good decision by locking the economy 100%. But when it reopened, the communities, the business, was not were not taken into considerations. When these people that are working at the mines, they reside at the villages in the communities. Now that's why we make a coalition with Makua, because the unions at the mines, I think they are sleeping. Because these employees, as they go to the mines, as they come back from the mines, having infected with this COVID-19 disease, they come and spread here to us, the communities. When they die, there's no graveyard in the mines. They come to be buried here in the community. But the communities are not involved, are not engaged, are not taken into consideration. That's the point I wanted to raise. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I've got also a question.
Comrade Francina.
Yes, hello.
Yes, I want to emphasize something here based on the speaker has just said right now, especially with regard to the trade unions in the mines.
Okay.
What I would like to emphasize is that our community-based organizations, our Makuas, they must engage the trade unions in the mining sector. They have to engage them. They have to attend their meeting, ask for a slot to address the workers as they are members of the community, to sensitize the workers so that these workers at the end of the day, they become part and parcels of the programs of the community at the community level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade Muchusa. What you are saying is very important. I think this is what we should, it's a step that we should take, all of us, so that we can do advocacy and also eye-opening to the workers. Let me read these two questions. One is from Tafatwa. watching from Zimbabwe, Harare. How do we locate the community struggles with the Day of African Child? What's the plight of young people in mining affected communities across South Africa? How do we support young people's struggles, especially from mining communities? Then another one from Babs Litoko from Klerksdorp. South African mines communities to exploit the foreigners and prefers of hire them over South African citizens to perpetuate Black poverty, and Black communities are still left in concentrated camps of apartheid because of weak regulatory body under ruling party. How are we going to survive the COVID-19 when there's a fundamental problem of not complying to MPRDA? My panelists.
Sorry, Comrade Francina, before we go to the panelists, we have quite a lot of questions that we need to get through. So I wonder if I can just read a couple more.
Okay, go through.
Okay, we will have one from Mohali who asks, are the problems that have been articulated here a result of COVID, or are they inherent problems that come with South African mining as a result of weak legislative input and the skewed political interest? And most importantly, where to from here, he asks. There's another question from Chepiso, who says, sorry for being late. So now that the schools are opened and every day they find a teacher or learner who is positive, then they close the schools again. So what was the purpose of opening in the first place? Another one from Lenswani says, COVID-19 crisis ushered in the digital engagement approach, which requires connected communities in line with the fourth industrial revolution. How do we ensure that communities are aligned to the new engagement approaches? How do we collaborate as various stakeholders to establish connected communities in light of COVID-19 crisis? Shouldn't we be the solution-driven rather than problem-driven as various partners to community development? That is the three questions that I have there. And then we also have Dikaledi, who would like to ask a question. Maybe she can go now. Dikaledi, Musia.
Hello, I greet you all, and I'm sorry for being late. I was busy with something else. So basically, I'm not having a question. I see that the government is very reckless, because right now what they did, they just looking out for profits. They are after money, they're after profits. They don't care about the lives of the people, because they decided to open the mines. Regardless of the numbers that is increasing, they decided to open the schools, regardless of the number of the pandemic going up and rising. At the start, they did not do that, but the number was still small. It was 100 and 120, but the schools and the mines were closed. After the schools and the mines were after the number goes up, then they open the school. So I think that the government is very, very reckless. They don't care about the lives of the people. They only care about the profits. So, and basically, the mines, because they don't even know their community members. They don't know what they need. They don't come to them and to check. Since all the other people, they don't go to work. They don't come to the communities to check what they need during this pandemics. Even at the schools, what they promised the government, they are not providing. So I think that our government, really, they are not looking out for us. They are only looking out for themselves. So for me, we are still facing a very big problem. Really, we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Dikaledi.
Hi, Comrade Francina.
Hi, Gilbert.
Yeah, there's another question from Anonymous. It says,
okay,
what has the government been doing for such a long time in democracy, yet even today there's no proper infrastructure at school And not only the government, also the mines, what's the impact in our upcoming youth?
Thank you, Comrade Gilbert. Comrade Francina, I see Nonhlanhla's hand is up.
Okay, Nonhlanhla.
To answer the question from Harare, I think, you know, in the context of the global black struggle, that it has been going on for far too long, where we have to constantly fight for what is right, for what is rightfully ours. So we have to constantly fight for adequate health. We have to constantly fight for violence, to end violence. And it is very worrying that even, you know, in this time after democracy, this is still happening. This unequalness, this patriarchy system is happening with our government. And, you know, there has been a history of you know, global historical narratives where Black people are constantly fighting. And as the youth of South Africa, as the youth that is affected by mining, and as the youth that is affected by, you know, the government patriarchal system, we need to stand together as the youth. We need to fight back. And as Comrade Solo has said, that, you know, each and every community member has to stand up and unite and fight against these systems, because really we really need to, you know, we really need to fight the system, because we can't keep on living like this in a community where the government does not value our lives as Black people. And I think we also need, you know, to make sure that the government is held accountable for each and every decision that they make without including us. And, you know, with today we actually held a global, a national protest where there was over 500 youth all over South Africa, Makua members, who demonstrated the brutal and the ruthlessness of the government. We need to make sure that the government understands that Black communities are suffocating in their hands. We need to make sure that Gwede Mandashe knows that the communities in South Africa, the communities of Gauteng, the Free State, the Northwest, and Mpumalanga, and all over, we want to be included. We need to be included in the issues that affect us. And we would like to call on all the comrades, all the activists all over South Africa, all over the world, all over Africa, to come and stand with us and you know, call on the government to stop abusing the communities, the Black communities of South Africa. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Comrade Nonhlanhla. Can I go to Comrade David?
Yes, thank you, Comrade Francina. I think that it is important that we speak about what is going to happen post-COVID, in the sense that the corporations seem to be concentrating their power. The small businesses are all collapsing, but the big businesses got massive assistance from government to survive the lockdown. Now, the mining companies could easily survive the lockdown because they've got a surplus of platinum sitting in mountains in Switzerland. It's that surplus that they can sell. The reason why platinum cannot get above $700 an ounce is because there is too much platinum on the global market. So opening the mines just contribute to increasing the platinum on the global markets and suppressing the price even further. In 2014, they had a 6-month strike, and the platinum price never rose because there was too much platinum on the market even then. You know, so they could easily survive 6-7 months of lockdown of platinum mines at least. And they could sell the platinum that they are hoarding in Switzerland, the very platinum with which they are evading taxes in South Africa. You know, but because we have a weak government, that that does not act. You know, the Irish government, for example, said that it will not support any companies that are registered in tax havens. Now, all our mining companies are registered in tax havens, where they can evade taxes in South Africa. But yet the government has paid them billions of rands to compensate them for their losses during the lockdown, their supposed losses. And the mines didn't have any losses during lockdown because they could sell their surpluses. They had no cost of electricity, transport, or anything else during the lockdown. So they were making clean profit during that particular time. We really need a government that is there to regulate and control, not one that is there to beg, bow, and scrape before mining companies. We must end this nonsense of having a government that is too afraid to govern. And the only people who can stop them from doing that are the ordinary people who should get organized in their communities, who should link up with their trade unions, who should have joint programs and activism in order to take forward their demands that the Constitution of South Africa must be realized for the people of South Africa. Otherwise, it's not worth the paper it's written on.
Thank you, Comrade Van Wyk. Comrade Silo?
Sorry, Comrade Francina, I was off for a while. I didn't get your questions. Can you please repeat?
Okay. We had questions. Comrade Nontlantla Assad, or the one from Tafatswa, and then Comrade Van Wyk also touched on what Paps did ask, and also the anonymous, but I will read them for you to hear them. South African mines continue to exploit the foreigners and prefers to hire them over South African citizens to perpetuate black poverty, and black communities are still left in concentrated camps of apartheid because of weak regulatory body under the ruling party. How are we going to survive the COVID-19 when there's a fundamental problem of not complying to the MPRDA? And then the anonymous said, what was the government been doing for such a long time in democracy, yet even today there's no proper infrastructure at schools? And not only the government, also the mines, and what's their impact on our upcoming youth? And other questions were read by Comrade Chris. I think you can answer from those ones.
Yes, thank you very much. With regard to the regulations, I think our constitutions and some labor laws are very clear when coming to the employment of the foreign nationals. I think there is a law that regulates how they should be employed, especially when coming to the scarce skills. You cannot, these companies cannot employ laborers who are from outside South Africa. They cannot employ cleaners who are outside South Africa. Whereas we have young people, people that are capable, that can work as laborers and cleaners. There are laws that regulate such instances. On our side, as the trade unions, as the civil society organization, is to make sure that these mines, they do comply with the regulations of the Labor Relations Act. We must, or we can, organize a workforce audit in the mining sector, not only the mining sector, also in the agricultural sector and in hospitality, to check and verify who is employed at which position and what is the job description. checking if all these companies, they do comply with the Labor Relations Act. And then we'll take it from there. The civil society organizations have a role to play, and it is an important role because we have got to hold this government accountable to all these shenanigans. If we don't expose them, they are always going to slip off.
Thank you, Comrade.
I think,
Selwa.
Comrade Francina, I think maybe after this forum, after this the COVID-19, we must organize a summit that involves all the civil society organizations and the stakeholders, especially inviting the trade unions on board and the workers' organization if there is a need, so that we come up with a way of holding them accountable when there is non-compliance, especially with regard to the employment of foreign nationals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, leadership. Mukiti, are you available or she's not? Comrade Chris, do you have questions on that side also? I only have one question from Mpo.
Yes, thank you. We have Lenswane, who just disappeared now. Lenswane, would you like to say something? I'm not sure how to pronounce your name there, comrade, because it's a P Lenswane, I think it is. Are you there, comrade? No? Okay. Then there is a question from Mpo, who says
Yes.
the mine workers will be compensated if they die from COVID-19. So what about us who are the victims of them being infected? So that's the one question. Then we have a question from Hisense F20. The government is opening schools and want to allow more children to go to school. Why don't they come out and inspect the schools before opening? We have from NACA, reopening of schools without access to proper running water and sanitation is a problem. The problem doesn't end up in school only because the same children are from places where there are no running water and sewer and so forth. A tool to fight COVID-19 is water and sanitation. Now it means that if you cannot cater for people at the local level where there is no sustainable service delivery, how can you fight the corona at schools while they have failed to do proper infrastructure? We are facing a spike in the corona. There is another question, I think, from Millicent. Millicent, do you want to come in? You've been a bit quiet. Are you there, comrade?
Yes, I'm here. Can I be unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
No, what I wanted to raise
You can
was,
go ahead, Millie.
Okay. What I wanted to stress on was Nonhlanhla's point and David van Wyk's point on the consultation. I fully support that we need to be consulted in every decision that it's been taken during this pandemic, because there are a lot of decisions that have been taken from moving to level 5, level 4, and giving the regulations, yet we are not heard as communities or as South African citizens on how we feel or what is our input on moving from one level to another. So I do feel that consultation is very important, and during this time, we also, as activists or community-based organizations, we need to have awarenesses to raise the point that we really stress to be a consultant, because I do feel that's very important, because even with the children going to school, it's such a shame, especially here in my community, like there's no proper sanitation, and you will find out that it's after school, but the children don't even have proper masks. Some are not even wearing those masks. So those are the kind of things that parents need to be consultant with. So yeah, I'm supporting the consultation part, yeah, and the workshops and the awarenesses.
Thank you. Comrade Francina, we also have Lorraine Kakaza, an old ally of ours, who I'm sure would has had a couple of questions. I wonder, Lorraine, would you like to ask or engage or make a statement?
Come in, Lorraine.
Hello everyone.
Hi, Lolo.
Yeah, okay. Mine was not a question. It's just that during this pandemic, there's a lot that has been happening, and then I see that many people in communities, they are the one who suffer a lot, and then the government doesn't take them seriously. Like, for instance, there was this social relief grant that they promised that they'll be given to people, and such thing, it happened, but then it took long. So I saw a lot of isolation. The pandemic has changed everything, the way we used to live, and then now we are into an isolated environment that has left many people with poverty and hunger, also abuse. We've seen the gender base, it's growing up now and then, and then now we are moving to this new normal, which has brought the new whole reality that we don't have to work, we don't have to do things like we used to do. So there's that mental problem that separates people from being close to each other. And then our struggles again, they are changing, because now the government is only focusing to those ones who are having money, and then the poor become more poor. And many women, we know that they depend on struggles, they depend on street vendors. So all those things have shut down. So our life has really changed. And children who have to go to school are also like going to be affected, because now we have to look, people who are living in urban and people who are living in rural areas, they are the most ones who suffer a lot are those ones who are coming from affected communities, rural, peri-urban communities. When this pandemic started, we raised so many questions, we did investigation, we were mapping out communities who don't have access to water, and then we've realized that this thing is not something that has started today. It started long ago, and then the government keep a blind eye to it. And then there were meetings that we attended trying to address such issues, and they were saying they would be coming back to us, and then it seems like nothing is happening. And I feel like it's high time that we work together, and if like we need to put a statement together, we work together and see what is happening. The issue of consultation is not something that has started today. It has been there for many years. There are no consultation. There's nothing that is happening. Yes, we try by all means to make means that the government can listen to us. What I've realized is that the government, it's only pushing profit instead of people's life. So on my side, I'm really hurt mentally and physical, because it's really hard, especially for a Black woman, a young girl who has to be raised in such situation. Now is this pandemic. Even before the pandemic came, we were suffering, and then now it's became more. Even on clinics, when you're supposed to go on a clinic, you have to stand on a long queue. Go to shop, you have to stand in a long queue. And those who have money, they can afford, they go to digital, like they go to digital, when they have to do their payments, they can do that easily. What about a woman who has to wake up early in the morning and go for queues on an empty stomach. There's nothing, even the issue of the parcel, food parcel, nothing is happening. And it affected a lot children who used to go to school. They used to depend on food skimming. Then now you ask yourself, whereas there was this pandemic, and then this pandemic is going to continue, how are they surviving? The grant money is not even enough. So there's a lot that needs to be done. I don't know what to say. It's just like I'm frustrated, stressed almost each and every day. What is it that I can do? But then there's nothing much I can do. But then we need to come up with a plan to see how can we solve this problem. Are we writing out a statement? Is there anything that we are willing to change this situation? Because our voices, it seems like they are not that much heard by the government. Only the voices that are being heard is those ones who are having money in their pockets. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Lorraine. I want to pose a question based on what we talked about now. Which are the gaps that government and mining industries must cover to mold themselves to current challenges from mining communities? I'm posing this to Comrade David. Maybe he can give us a clear picture of how the government and mining communities can cover the gaps. David?
Hi. Sorry, I was muted. I unmuted myself now. Yes, I think it's a very important question. We have a local government election coming up next year. And we must understand that our votes should not be cheap, number one. Number two, we must understand, and I worked with communities in Colombia and South America on this, where the communities put their own candidates for the elections. And now the Constitutional Court has found that you can in fact proceed to stand for election with your own leaders in your community. You don't have to belong to a political party. And I think it's very important that, in Cajamarca, in Colombia, people were fighting for a very, very long time to secure, to prevent AngloGold Ashanti from starting a mine there. And they won that battle because they won the local government elections. And they won every referendum that they held about that mine. And the mine could not proceed. Even a powerful company like AngloGold Ashanti had to back down. So I think that we need to organize in our communities now that the Constitutional Court has found that it is possible for us to do so, for the local government elections, so that we elect our own people in our communities that put our interests before the interests of mining and before the interests of profit. This way, the ruling party and other political parties will learn a lesson in what to do, or rather in not ignoring communities and not taking community votes to be cheap. Because, at the moment they come to us, they give T-shirts, they make all kinds of promises that they never keep, and they just ignore us in between elections. You never see them after the election ever again. They completely forget about you until it's the next election when they come and make false promises again.
Thank you, Comrade Van Wyk. Comrade Chris, any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Comrade Francina. One comrade here, Comrade Lenswane, who has been asking some very interesting questions. Comrade Lenswane, would you be interested in asking your questions again? Okay, but we're not getting through to that, comrade. Okay. So one last question we have from Comrade Cabello in Carltonville at the Makua branch there. He says, regarding youth, These mining companies, they got the consumption of hiring through the health of a person, whereas they are the ones who bring us diseases such as silicosis and tuberculosis. This dust particles going to the mining hosting communities. So I urge this mandate of mining companies to take, mandate of mining companies to take advantage of us. So the comrade is just talking about the pollution and the effects on the community and the fact that these have not been dealt with at all, not in regulations, not in legislation, nowhere. Communities are left like victims who basically are going to be infected without any compensation and without anything done by the mines. So that is the question from that comrade. And then I think we have most of it covered. I'm just double checking on the live, on the Facebook live feed, if there's any questions there, Comrade Gilbert, that we missed.
Not yet. Not yet.
So we've covered everything?
Yes, I think I've sent the last question to Comrade Francina.
Okay, yes, let me read it out. It's from Babs. Our mining communities often know little about the actual mining operations and poorly prepared to judge the nature and seriousness of accidents, real or alleged. How are we going to force both mining companies and government to adhere to consulting and sharing information with public at large? Can I pose this question to Muchosa?
Comrade Francina, before Muchosa gets in, can I put you another question from Babs, please?
Okay.
Yeah, the other one is saying, as activists on the ground, we also encounter problems of local South African Police Services Department or officials who do not have capacity to deal with complaints and cases regarding MPRDA. Mostly they don't have any clue of how the mines should operate. How will an ordinary citizen enforce compliance when our chapter institution can't?
Okay. Is that all of the question we have for now? Gilbert?
All for now, comrades. That's all for now.
Okay. Comrade Muchosa, can you chip in?
Comrade Francina, can you repeat that question again, please?
Okay, our mining communities often know little about the actual mining operations and poorly prepared to judge the nature and seriousness of accidents, real or alleged. How are we going to force both mining companies and government to adhere to consulting and sharing information with the public at large?
Thank you very much, Comrade Francina. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Currently, in South Africa, there is only one way to force either a private company or government to comply. Lately, we have seen AMCU and other civil society organizations taking the DMR to court for a clear COVID-19 regulations. We have seen most organizations taking the DMR to court with matters of regulating the SLPs in the mines. So that's what our government wants us to do. If we want you to listen to us, take us to court. Because if whenever and when we make submissions to this government during the community consultations meetings, they don't listen to us until we take them to court, and then they implement the remedies of the Court of Laws. We have a long way to go with this government. One other reason, Comrade Francina, what I've realized, the reason behind these tendencies, these neoliberal tendencies of this government of our contemporary South Africa, is that they have identified the civil society organizations that are representing the poor people as the anti-revolutionaries or counter-revolutionaries formations. Now, what led to that? It is because the activists, they are trying to own the political terrain. They are raising their voices beyond a political party landscape. They are threatening the politicians. That is why the government, it will never listen to the civil society organizations, because these organizations, they are able to mobilize, they are able to organize their activities outside the political party landscape, and they have got the powers to render the government ungovernable if empowered with the resources or ears to implement their own recommendations. So we have a long way to go as the people of this country, because our government is not listening to us. These private companies also, they are not listening to the people because the government is on their side. The only way they are going to listen to us is when we have to go to the court of law to seek for a remedy or for non-compliance. I thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Muchusa. I have a question for Nonhlanhla. Nonhlanhla, we have LGBTIQ who are also the victims in this gender-based violence. Young kids, youth, women, what can be done? What do you think for us to overcome this? What can be done?
You know, Ma'am Francina, there has been a very, very long struggle, you know, in our country in terms of, you know, gender-based violence, and you know the Department of Police and the Defense Force not being able to, you know, do their work in the right way. I think the government has to, you know, make sure that the police, the soldiers do what they are supposed to do, so that they make sure that our communities, our society, and our South Africa is safe. And I think that we must make sure that the communities know and understand what gender-based violence is, what, you know, violence against other people means, and what it is, so that they are able to, you know, report such cases to the police, and that the police do their work in the correct way. And I think that our biggest problem also in South Africa is that, you know, we have had a culture whereby there has been, you know, patriarchal systems, not only in our in the government, but also in our homes, in, you know, in our houses and in our community. And I think people need to understand ukuthi ukushawa kumuntu wesifazane wrong. It's so wrong to you know, to violate other people's rights. It is wrong to hang someone else's child on the tree. It is wrong to beat up people. And in turn, we also need to teach men. We need to teach our Black men how to you know, how to treat women, and we also need to teach our young women to know and understand ukuthi such things are wrong and they need to report them. And then I think we also need quite a lot of workshops, quite a lot of conscientizing in our communities, and hold the government accountable, because they are supposed to put in place plans and strategies to make sure that the police services are there and are available to our communities, and make sure that the police do their work. So I think us starting, in terms of making sure that our communities is safe, is, giving out people information that gender-based violence is wrong and it should stop, and also make sure that our police keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Nontlantla. Based on our time, how many minutes are we left, or are we above time?
Comrade Francina, we're about time. I think maybe we can just allow all of the panelists to just finish off on last comments. But I wonder if you would be so kind as to allow me just 2 minutes to just respond to something.
Okay, come in first, Comrade
Thank
Chris.
you. So Comrade Selo was very kind to share with us the importance of the courts. But I think also from our purposes, it's very important for us to keep in mind that part of the ideas that drive Makua forward is the idea that even though we are going to win some court cases from time to time, and there have been many court cases that we've won, we can think back to the Mining Charter court case, we can think back to the AMKU case where we were involved in, we can think to the Kolobeni matter, we can think to the situation unfolding currently in KwaZulu-Natal at Somkele. There are court cases that we have won. But in all the court cases, what seems to be consistent is that without the community organizing, without us being strong and united and ready to challenge government to claim those rights that we won in court, there will be no progress for mining affected communities. So it is critical for me that we build a strong Makua and Wamua and Yamua across the country in such a way that when we stand up, that we are able to make government listen. So one of the things that have been what has informed the shape of the mining space is that there are three key players who decide what happens in mining. The first is big business, organized business. They organize themselves through the Minerals Council and they're strong. And when they say something, they can actually support it. They can either withdraw their capital or they can withdraw their corrupt funding to politicians, for example. So they have a way to influence the state. The state is organized as the only force in the country who can use force legitimately and who can enforce laws. So they are certainly, and they're the ones who make the laws. And then organized labor. Labor have organized themselves. Mining has been one of the most organized working spaces in South Africa and continues to be so. And so when labor speaks, they get heard. But communities have been disorganized. We have been apart from each other. We have been fighting our struggles in silos, in isolation. And this is where I think Makua comes in. We are bringing together those struggles in a way that when we make our voices heard, that our voices will be heard. And we can only do that if we organize and if we act together in a united way. So I think we are slowly but surely getting to that point. So that's the only point I wanted to make, is that while the courts are important, what is more important for us as the marginalized and excluded is our unity and our solidarity and our coming together. That is the critical part for us. Thank you, Comrade Francis.
Thank you, Comrade Chris. Let me give before I give all the panelists a chance to say something in closing, I want to remind all of us about the Freedom Charter that was signed on the 26th of June. For continuity of our webinar, we're going to hold another one talking about Freedom Charter on the 26th of June. We've got only 10 days to talk about it. I hope people will be prepared on that one and be part of the discussion about our Freedom Charter and our the way communities are affected by this. Let me start again with Comrade David Van Wyk with closing remark from you. David?
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
I hear music. I hear music in the background.
Yeah, can you go in with your closing
Hello?
Okay.
remark?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There's someone else talking.
Mukiti,
Yeah,
can you mute yourself, please?
I just want to indicate that I want to thank Makua for inviting me to this very important discussion. I want to thank everyone who called in and to ask questions, and very important questions at that, and also the other panelists for giving very informed answers. I think it's a very important webinar that you held this morning. I think both in terms of schools and in terms of mines, communities are severely affected by this, and the consequences will be dire, especially for older people in communities who look after very often grandchildren and so on. Those schools are going to carry the virus back into their homes, and we are going to see many caregivers who might not actually survive this virus in the mining areas. I also just want to say that what we need to do is we need to organize, we need to educate, we need to mobilize. I think I agree with Comrade Christopher around these particular issues. It's very important that we have united action. I think Makua plays a very important role with regard to the mobilization of communities. Benchmarks plays a role with regards to generating information that can be used in the process of education and understanding the issues better, and assist communities and also lawyers and so on with regard to court cases and these sorts of things when they do happen. However, as I said before, we need to also enter the political terrain, and we need to challenge in mine communities the big parties who come there and just make false promises and never carry them out. Communities know how the mines affect them, and the communities should make demands around those impacts of the mines on their lives, and also the fact that they're not participating in the wealth of those mines in any way whatsoever. So I think there's a lot of important work to do. There's a lot of collaboration that should take place, and I'm looking forward to your future webinars and discussions. Thank you very much for having me. It's a great privilege and an honor to have been here.
Thank you, Comrade Van Wyk. Muchusa?
Thank you very much, Comrade Francina. Let me take this opportunity. Thank everyone, the panelists and everyone who did make it to this webinar. I would like to cut across some of the few issues here, especially with regard to the community organizations, and then calling on all our activists and leaders to exercise maximum integrity. Most importantly, because these people, they are directly involved with the people at the grassroots level. And no one is going to associate himself with someone who is corrupt. And also these organizations, they must also avoid the fragmentations within their organizations, both caused by internal and external factors. Caused by financial issues as an internal factor, or external factor, maybe the politicians meddling their fingers in the affairs of the community organization and causing divisions within organizations. So these organizations and their leaders, they must come up with a good mechanism of sorting out the internal divisions that are tearing apart our civil society organizations. Lastly, I would like to emphasize that there is a simple thread that is holding together all these organizations, and is the fact that these organizations, they only exist to promote public good. They must bear in mind, they are not there to promote the interest of another person, or they are not there because they are following another person. They are person of a person, but they are there only because they want to promote the public good. Lastly, I would like to, I've heard Comrade David talking about contesting the political terrain. What I've realized is that since from 1994 in this country, the civil society organizations bleeded the most productive leadership into the business and the political sector. And now, this sector is left with concerned groups without leadership that are busy organizing violent protests, burning the schools, burning the buses, and burning the libraries and government institutions because they don't have leadership. Let us go out there and own the space as leaders of community-based organizations. Owning that space will be protecting our communities and will be protecting all the institutions from the facts that are masquerading themselves as the leaders of the consensus group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade Solomuchosa. Comrade Nontantla.
Thank you, Ma'am Francina. I would like to urge all community members, all the youth, all the social organizations, all the community-based organizations and the NGOs within South Africa to come together and stand and fight against all the injustices that are happening. And, with Mr. President Ramaphosa's statement on condemning gender-based violence, I am saying to you, Mr. President, that condemning the violence and throwing money at this problem will not help solve the problem. We need a plan, we need a better strategy to seriously make sure that this problem goes away. And to the Minister of Education, the higher education and the basic education, come see our schools, come to the community, come see how our infrastructures are, come see that we don't have proper sanitation, come see that we do not have water, and please fix those problems, because it is your work and it is your duty to make sure that in the schools, these things must be present, to make sure that the education goes according to plan. And urge to also the South African Police Department and the Defence Force, you managed to make sure that the people stay at home during this COVID-19. Make sure that the gender-based violence does not happen. If push comes to shove, come to the communities, come into our streets and protect our women. And also to Mr. Gwede Mantashe, the youth of South Africa will not back down. Yamua is here, and we are going to make sure that you account for all the things that you are supposed to account for. The mining affected communities will make sure that they fight and make sure that the communities get what they deserve. We as the youth, we refuse to be victims of patriarchy. We refuse to be victims of poverty, the marginalization and the non-recognition of the youth of South Africa and of the youth of the communities. We refuse to suffocate under the strangulation of the poor policies that are implemented by the government, the regulations of the unstructured government that do not work for the communities. We refuse to be part of that. And we refuse to allow for non-inclusion and non-consultation on the issues that affect the youth and the community as a whole. We refuse to be sabotaged as the youth and of the mining affected communities. You know, our aim as Yamua and building this youth movement within the Makua and Wamua in South Africa is to mobilize and build the youth so that we have networks all over South Africa and that we protect the integrity of the South African youth and of the South African communities that are affected by the brutal and ruthlessness of the government. And we also say that as a youth, enough is enough. We stand together and we fight for for injustices and equalities that are present in our country. Siyaya phambili noma kanjani. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Nonhlanhla. Mokete, can you say something?
Yeah, I think from me, I think I would like to add to Gwerem and Tasha that as communities, we are saying that it's high time that the department legalize artisanal mining, you know, because the people who are making profits you know, foreign investors. So we need to develop systems and do artisanal mining as communities. That is one way of fighting back, you know, the current system we are now embedded in, because there's been a lot of things that we have said in the past. You know, we have spoken about the mines being transparent and other things. They have failed our communities. So the only way the communities can actually benefit out of mining is if they become part of mining. And by being part of mining is that the communities, they should be licensed and become the miners as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Mokete. Gilbert, you want to say something? Gilbert?
Oh, thanks, Comrade Francina, for the opportunity. And I would like to say on behalf of Makua subcommittee team, the media subcommittee team, to say thanks to our panelists, Sello Machusa, Mogete Kota, David Van Wyk, and our Yamua coordinator, Nonhlanhla Sibiya. We really appreciate your inputs, guys. We are also looking forward to hosting some of you on the 26th of this month during our Freedom Charter webinar, and it will also be, we'll be doing a simulcast webinar, the People's Mining Charter and the Freedom Charter webinar on the 26th of June. Thanks, Comrade Francina.
Thank you very much for the panelists for being part of this webinar, and thank you very much for your inputs. It was a fruitful webinar. What I will say in closing is that the community needs to stop dependency from the government and start doing things on their own. Food sovereignty is a way to go. No to GMO food. Nothing about us without us. Kweda Mantashi, remove your knee from our neck. We can't breathe as community who are affected by mining. Amandla to everyone who took part to be on the webinar. Thank you very much for everyone and have a lovely day. Hope to see you on the 26th of June, Freedom Charter webinar. Thank you very much.